Welcome back to the Irish Mags Show. It is episode 70. That's right, 70. Alan Williamson, 70 episodes. What do you say to that? 70.
I say we've been talking an awful lot of rubbish for an awful long time, and thank you very much to our listeners, but why are you putting yourself through this?
I mean, I think we need to throw it out there. If there's anybody out there who has listened to all 70 of these episodes, even I haven't gotten through 70 of them because I missed one. I did listen to it though, the one where I let Alan and Krisho at the wheel, and I won't be doing that again, listeners. I promise. So if anyone has tuned in for all 70 episodes, make yourself known in the comments. I'm going to commit Alan to finding you some form of Irish Mags prize if you can prove you've listened to all 70 episodes. Which includes all of Krisho's nonsense too. I am your host, Paul, and of course we are back. And really quickly, before we dive into today's discussion, the Irish Mags are proudly sponsored by Flagman Ireland. I was looking at photos of flags today, Alan. I was doing a bit of a collection for the website. And the flag collection is growing and they look great in the pictures. So if you're looking for flags, Flagman Ireland specialise in quality, digitally printed, personalised flags, bunting, tablecloths, table flags and hand wavers. Their online store also stocks and sells a wide range of international and domestic flags, including their heavy woven, government standard, Irish tricolour in various sizes and finishes, all of which can be shipped all over the world and can be ordered from flagsireland.com. We also have a link for the Irish Mags flags as well. If you need that, it should be over on the website or in and amongst the WhatsApp groups. But I think you can get it through the main website too. Flags, fun with flags. Right, Alan, it's just yourself and myself today. For those of you that didn't hear it last week, some people, Alan, they're just not made out for big events. Some people just don't shine on the big occasions. They can't handle the pressure. They don't rise to the occasion when needed. And Krisho was one of those because, folks, he's still not right since that Carabao Cup final. Alan, what do we do to him?
It basically just proves that he can't handle the sesh with the Irish Mags. That's all I'm saying. Like,
I think that's
he
fair.
went away for one weekend and hasn't been seen since.
And something similar happened after I went with him to the Nottingham Forest game. So he spent one proper night with me, and he was broken for 3 days after that. Now he's red injured now is what he is. Like, he's not even question mark on FPL. He's fully out.
He's seriously out.
But we might have him back next week. We'll see how he's feeling. Poor devil. So our best wishes to Krisho. I do hope he was alive and kicking for the most recent Newcastle United game, though, Alan, because that's where a lot of our discussion is going to take place today. For anyone that's been hiding under a rock and missed it, we got back to winning ways in the Premier League. Alan, it was like a month since our last proper league game, and our last game in St James's Park. It was I was all over the place with what was going on. I feel like
it just feels like it was about 6 months ago the last time we played a Premier League match. Like, it was just, there was international breaks, there was Carabao Cup finals, there was just everything in the way of us playing a Premier League game. But it was great to get back to winning ways under the lights at St James's. Let's be honest about it.
Yeah, it was bad. I needed there was a lot of question marks and concerns over or as to whether we would be able to actually just kind of hit the ground running. The phrase cup hangover, cup final hangover, all that kind of stuff. None of these lads were drinking, so I mean, Eddie Howe wouldn't allow them to have a drink. So I don't know
if you've seen Mark Gillespie or not. Did you not? That man was upside down on that bus.
Mark Gillespie and John Ruddy probably drank enough for the team between them, and they're the only ones that are allowed. Everybody else has to train and be available. But Mark Gillespie and John Ruddy, they have the Irish Mags blessing to go and get smashed on behalf of the rest of the team, and I'm sure they did too, as did, I'm sure, Jason Tyndall and a few of his buddies, and deservedly so. But we obviously, the first team had to get back in the mentality of, putting the cup behind us, which is always a hard thing to do because, I mean, obviously the experience of that parade and what happened in the city centre of Newcastle, which I'm going to talk to you about in a moment, Alan, because I know you were there. I didn't see on the TV. I didn't see on the bus. No. Thankfully, that's probably a good thing. I didn't see you trying to squeeze your way in between Ant and Dick. But I'd like to hear about that experience. But it was just, I can't imagine how tough it must be. You go and you win this cup final. There's all the euphoria, winning the final, lifting the trophy. A bunch of them then have to go different parts of the world to international duty, including Dan Byrne. Shout out to Dan Byrne, getting his England cap. And then coming back, doing the parade, you're back to celebrations mood again. And then you're into training and it's like, right, focus, we've got a league game, forget everything that just happened. I don't know how they do it. And people think players are just machines, but I don't think it's that simple, Al. But
No,
yeah, I suppose looking at like, were you ever any doubt? We won't go to the game just yet, but did you have your own doubts as to whether we'd be able to just
absolutely.
get our heads ready?
Absolutely. In my head, I was like, this is just screaming that we're going to lose 3-0. Go out, get
Mm.
battered. And then Eddie comes out and goes, our mind was still on the cup, or we were still in celebration mode. Didn't look like that, to be honest. So it was good from that aspect of it. But yeah, it was major worry that we were going to have a bit of a hangover from the cup final, but didn't, thankfully.
We didn't, thankfully, as we know, because hindsight is a
Hmm.
wonderful thing and we can look back on it. Right, before we dive into that, because we're going to have a chat about the game itself, a couple of players, and particularly a specific goal that we need to break down in some detail. It's been doing the rounds already. And that might inspire a bit of a conversation we're going to have around midfielders for Newcastle United. But just quickly, Alan, on that victory parade, on that, well, I mean, I was going to say weekend, but I have it on good authority that you did a very trains, planes, and automobiles effort to
Yeah,
get to this parade. At one point, I think you nearly had to hijack the bus to make sure you were going to get back on time. Tell us what it was like over in Newcastle last Saturday for the celebrations.
it was a proper carnival atmosphere. It was unreal. So yeah, I did a day trip, which was in hindsight truly awful because it wasn't a day trip. I arrived into Newcastle at 7:30 in the morning, and my flight back was at 5:30. The parade started at 4:30. I
Okay.
see. I seen the start of the parade and still got onto the plane.
So
So
you saw the
yeah,
bus.
yeah, that was it. I saw the bus and I legged it. Had to get. I pretty much standing at the Sandman and legged it down to the metro station, onto the metro, straight to the plane. So it was truly not really worth it, but to soak up the atmosphere, it was absolutely worth it. And the whole city was just on wheels. From like I seen lads with cans at 8 o'clock in the morning that weren't on flights. So like was when I got into Newcastle, there was lads starting their session 8 o'clock in the morning. I was like, these boys are going to be on it today, and everyone was on it. The place was rocking. It was brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, I was sitting here, I was watching it like it was like so the club obviously were streaming it from a certain point, but I just wanted more. I wanted to see more. I was on Twitter, I was on Instagram, I was on Bebo. But mainly then for a lot of the kind of build up, I'd be on Sky Sports News
Mm.
and they'd kind of show a little bit of it, and then they'd go back to fucking Paul Merson or some other clowns that we don't listen to. So then I jump over to Sky News, who would be showing kind of a different part of it, and they were just jumping in and out of
Mm.
between them. So I was all over the place, literally following it. And then I think I watched like Dan Burns' interview probably 4 times, just because it kept getting kind of replayed or they were jumping
Yeah,
around. But it just looked unbelievable, and seeing like the banner coming down on the Sandman, seeing the lads kind of abseiling down the side of the building with the
yeah,
flares, all the
mental.
people climbing up on phone boxes and bus shelters and trees, people kind of lining up the each level of the car parks. Like it just looked unbelievable. And yeah, fair play. If ever a city deserved it,
Oh,
and
it's
us as a
unreal.
fan base,
Yeah.
by default, yeah, absolutely class. And I tweeted on the day because I was like, what the fuck's going to happen if and when we win the league? Like, seriously,
Well,
can you
I
imagine?
I seen a stat. So this last census done in Newcastle said there was 300,100 people living in Newcastle, and they estimated there was 300,000 people at the parade. So 100 people didn't go. Is the easiest way of looking at it, which is absolutely insane.
They must have been. They were the ones working behind the bars and behind the shop counters and restaurants, and yeah, everybody else probably stuck their head outside. I don't know. I don't even know how you'd begin to count. I know it's all estimates,
Yeah.
but like, I'm sure there's smart ways of just looking at,
Mm.
how many people were, how deep the lines of people were on the streets, and somebody far smarter than us could probably
Well,
guess
just
statistics.
to put it into context, I was walking up towards St James's at about 12:30. I was going up to buy something in the club shop, and I went into the Tesco to buy just a drink, like a singular can of Coke kind of job, and there was nothing left in the shop. I mean, alcohol, drinks, Chris, there was nothing left, and it was just people going like, "We don't have anything left. It's all gone. Leave us alone." They were just short of shutting the shops because they'd been drank and eaten dry. So like, there was an
Good
awful
day.
lot more than they anticipated. Oh, mental day. It was brilliant.
A good day for the economy of Newcastle, anyway. And
Yes.
I'm trying to imagine you buying a can of Coke because I've never seen you drink anything but cider and Monster, and a half a pint of Guinness maybe once. Speaking of which, other
Yes.
energy drinks are available. Oh yeah, it looked unbelievable anyway, and fair play. And what also looked unbelievable, probably a good segue, was the atmosphere in the stadium that followed at the Brentford game
Yeah.
last night. What are we talking about? 4 or 5 days later, was it?
Yeah.
I was like, I was wondering. I suppose you never really know what to expect with a midweek game.
Mm.
Obviously weekends in Newcastle and weekdays in Newcastle are very different things.
Mm.
With a late game under the lights, you never kind of know what to expect. But from the kickoff, even before the kickoff, it was hopping. And again, another War Flags masterclass, Alan, which I'm sure you saw.
War flags are the best thing to happen to Newcastle United, bar none. I don't care. The Eddie Howe history made, that this is for
Yeah.
those who could not be there last week. Everything, the subtle touches that they just kept on handing out, and I was it's every week that Newcastle are on the telly, and I'm watching them, and I'm going, oh Jesus, I wish I could be there. Last night was it was a proper envy of, oh, I wish I could be soaking up this atmosphere, because it
Mm.
looked like the place was rocking. It was deadly. That the Eddie Howe history made was just class. I absolutely love that, because he is the man for us. It's mental to say that less than 6 months ago we were talking about potentially Eddie out conversations. I was never in the camp of Eddie out. I knew he was going to be the man to lead us to something. Didn't think it was going to be this quick, but absolutely unbelievable. Unbelievable.
I'd imagine there's a lot like, yeah, we were all, I mean, I was speaking about it here and on multiple podcasts where I wasn't Eddie Howe out either. I was my biggest thing was we need to change things. We need to do different things. Because we were just becoming so predictable. And there's still elements of that about our game, to be honest, I think. But around the time a lot of those conversations were had, changes were made. And in particular, obviously, one change that has sparked a lot of our good fortune since, which was the Sandro Tonali change. But it wasn't really the only change. We were kind of chopping in between defenders, and then we settled on, okay, these are our fullbacks. The midfield has obviously straightened itself out and had time to gel a lot better since Sandro went down, and then Bruno pushes on. There was a lot of messing around. It wasn't that long ago Joe Linton was playing on the right wing. We were still trying the Willock and Joe Linton combo at different points. It was all kind of a little bit all over the place. And sometimes you have to go through that to settle.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say we're fully settled yet, but you just feel an extra layer of kind of resolve. I think the West Ham game showed that, and definitely that Brentford game shows that. There's such confidence in our shape, in our ability to absorb pressure and soak it up. The West Ham game, obviously the Liverpool game. I just think that this unit is building in confidence. So we'll talk about the game. We'll get to Sandro in a minute, because I've had the Sandro Tonali song in my head for what is now nearly 24 hours. Like, the man is living rent free in my head all day, like all last night, all
Unreal.
today. It's literally been in my head since this morning. I was tempted to have a breakfast of spaghetti and Moretti just because it was living in my head. But just on the game itself, like I thought I was blown away by how well we started. And it wasn't just like, high intensity, and we played really well for that opening 10-15 minutes. We created a couple of chances, and I found myself thinking, well, if we don't score one of these, you always have that fear. And that's something we've had before. But I was just, at no point did I really think we weren't going to win the game, even though like we weren't brilliant. But I was very impressed by the start, and I'm curious to hear what you thought about, like, let's say, got the first half, and any players that stood out as well.
Well, like we should have been 1-0 up. Isak could have scored the header after 70 odd seconds or something like that.
100%. And I think he does in a normal, couple of weeks of football where you're playing every 4 or 5, 6 days. I think
it was just, like, you said it, from minute one, we were on that. We absolutely came out of the traps a million miles an hour, and it's how we usually start. But like yourself, after 10, 15, 20 minutes, we haven't gotten a goal. Brentford pushed back into it, and you're kind of going, oh, are we going to have a potential banana skin? It started to look a bit like the Brighton game, where you're going, we're huffing and puffing, we're getting nowhere, and then all of a sudden, are we going to lose this game? But thankfully, Jacob Murphy's cross for Isak's goal, if he had picked it up and walked with the ball, he would have put it where the ball landed. It was pinpoint accuracy of a cross. The man is getting better somehow each week. And Isak's finishing is just unbelievable. Now, I know it took a deflection, but he had to be there to put it into the back of the net. But it was just unreal. And players standing out in the first half, nobody really grabbed the game by the scruff of the neck too much. That Harvey Barnes looked very, very dangerous anytime he got the ball, anytime he was involved in the play. He should have either had a goal handed to him by Isak, or Isak should have had another goal when he was dancing through and just took a little bit too long. But come here, hindsight's 2020 and all that jazz. But we were much, much better over the course of the first half than Brentford were. Brentford got back into it, but still a little bit of ring rustiness about us that we can hopefully blow off in the last couple of games.
Yeah, I definitely think there was, particularly for Isak, there was a little bit of rust there, I think. Whatever. I mean, again, it could be, just due to, I don't say like a game time, because obviously he was away in international duty, but just fluidity, momentum, routine, whatever you want to call it. There was a little bit of that. But the thing with Isak is when he misses a chance, he goes, right, fuck that, I'm going to go and make up for it.
Yes.
And like, it's very rare that Isak misses a chance and doesn't make up for it. That's the kind of striker we're dealing with. And he knows he's going to get another chance, and he did. Jacob Murphy's just, he'd baffle you when he does, he kind of might give away an odd pass, or his touch will let him down. But then what he does have, like, where he's putting pressure on there, was it probably Keane Lewis Potter a few times, either the centre back or Nelton midfield, or even Pinnock, who got robbed a couple of times, like just putting that pressure on, robbing the ball, like you just can't really put a price on that, because it just completely baffles and kind of fucks the opposition in the head, because there's not much you can do. You have to react so quickly when you make a mess of it. So fair play to him for that. There's one question I did want to ask. So just really quickly, I actually was really impressed with Tino Livramento and Kieran Trippier in the first half as well. I thought they both Tino a couple of times defensively, maybe kind of ball over the top or a little bit turn, but going forward, I thought he was brilliant. His ability to hold on to the ball and just cover yards with the ball is fantastic on his bad side. And I just thought Trippier was so solid. He actually looks very fit as well. He almost looks a bit leaner, I think, than he's looked before. I don't know if that's just me, but
I know he does. He 100% looks a hell of a lot fitter than he did at the start of the season, and he was outstanding. I don't think he put a foot wrong the whole game. Just on Tino, he has now kept the best and the third best right winger quiet, playing out of position for us in the last two games. Like, Mbeumo is the third best right winger in the Premier League, and last week obviously he kept Salah out of a cup final, and he is the best right winger in the world at the minute. So I think Tino's after giving Eddie a bit of a headache with the, oh shit, you're nearly as good left back as you are right back. And I'm going to give Mr. Sean Casey a bit of a tip of the hat here, because he did say something in the Irish Mags and on Twitter the other day. What about inverted fullbacks for matching inverted wingers? So the likes of Liverpool will play inverted wingers that can cut in and shoot. So play your left back, right back, and your right back, left back, and that nullifies that. It's a serious option to have going forward. Now, I don't know how well it would actually work in the grand scheme of things, but it's an idea that we could potentially use going forward. And Tino is only going to get better and better and better, and he is 100% England's right back for the next 10 years.
Yeah, like, I know they brought Reece James in there, even though he's barely played any football this season. But I mean, okay, he scored a free kick, but Tino, a confident Tino is what you want. Tino building up confidence, because we saw what he was doing that at Southampton as a right back at 18, and he was doing it very much in an attacking sense. So when he has the confidence to see what he can do, it's class. And I think the biggest thing it does, it gives you options, right? You've got Trippier there, who had shaky moments in the past. Others have gone on, but the current version of Trippier is the version we want and we need. There's the leadership elements, the solidity, the confidence in defense. He didn't put a foot wrong as far as I was concerned, and against a team with quick players, and they were making a lot of changes. And yeah, it'd be interesting to see next season. I remember my prediction in January, Alan. It was like I was talking about, we were talking about predictions for the next 12 months, and I said I had no doubt that both Lewis Hall and Tino Livramento would start to get linked with, bigger name clubs, for want of a better phrase. and it's already going around.
Yeah.
Liverpool have been thrown in there. Man City have been thrown in there on both of them. It's not going to happen. I was just talking about links,
Yeah.
and it doesn't surprise me at all. Okay, we'll go into the second half. Again, you'd have the fear how we're going to start in the second half. I don't think we started too kind of terribly or anything like that, but we very quickly sort of let them take a bit of control and take the ball a lot. And maybe that's just a bit of habitual residue from the Liverpool game where we're like, yeah, we're fine without the ball. We don't mind it. Like, and then suddenly they were coming onto us. They were attacking a lot, and we basically had a flat kind of back four and a flat midfield five. And it was very rigid and very structured and very organized. But also, it was like we were just sitting in, and I didn't, you don't want to sit in at home against Brentford. It just felt dangerous.
Yeah, you never like sitting back and just camping on the edge of your box. But there was 2 like 15 or 10-minute periods in the second half where we could not get out. I remember at one stage, about 10 or 15 minutes into the second half, we won the ball back. Dan Burn cleared it, went straight back to one of their midfielders. Ball straight back into the box. We cleared it again. We were getting no further than the edge of the D of the halfway line, and I'm going, this is not good. And lo and behold, 5 minutes later, they get the penalty. Pope. What can you say about Nick Pope in that situation? There was no real need for him to come for that ball. Hindsight's 2020. Wiss's touch wasn't great and all that jazz, but it's not entirely Pope's fault. Dan Burn didn't follow the run. He was left in acres of space. So if you're going to be nailing Pope to the wall with that, you're going to have to go, well, centre half shouldn't mark them. Ball shouldn't have come into him as easy as it did. Penalty. It was a stonewall penalty. I don't care what anyone says. It was a penalty, 100%. And Mbuemo's penalties has taken 9, has put in all 9 into the corner that he put the penalty into, and Pope dived the other way. Like, come on.
I literally, I'm sure we all watched the same thing. We saw the
little graphic
image, the graphic that pops up, and I think that was actually his 10th in a row. But yeah, it shows the last 5 all on, let's say, the right of like Nick Pope's left. And granted, you might be like, well, at some point he has to change, but like, why would he? Left-footed. Yeah. So that irritated the shit out of me as well, to be honest, because it wasn't even planted in the left corner in that corner. No. It was just that side of the goal. I think any keeper is going to stop that penalty if they dive the right way. And so yeah, I think Nick Pope screwed his own odds by diving the other way. But anyway, look, it was a definite penalty. I think it was a combined defensive fuck up to concede it. But I don't think you can doubt it's a penalty, sadly. No. And what I didn't realize was an interesting stat the commentator said. It's the first penalty we conceded all season, and we were the last team in the league that hadn't conceded a penalty. So I was quite surprised about that. And I was thinking, I was like, yeah, do I remember Dubravka or Pope having to try and save a penalty outside of the shootouts? No.
No, yeah, that's mad.
So yeah, that's what they said. Basically, every other team had conceded a penalty except Newcastle until then. That's not bad going. We'll take that. Yeah, something else, we're winning it. Yeah, we don't get to claim things often. Right then, yeah. Look, Brentford they created chances. They were threatening. They were dangerous. But Dan Burn was class. I thought Fabian Schär was quite solid. We already talked about the fullbacks. I actually thought Pope had a very good game. Apart from that, he was sweeping well. Got out a couple of times when he needed out around the edge of the box. So I didn't really have any problems there. I thought Bruno at times was a strange game from Bruno. I found myself looking at it going, why does he keep trying to be so clever all the time? And when I say that, it's, I love seeing a player try a killer ball, but on the third occasion that it didn't work and they were all going to Jacob Murphy, I was thinking, okay, like Keane Lewis Potter is just waiting for you to try this and he's quick enough to intercept. So and the passes weren't super accurate. A couple of times he received the ball, he tried to kind of flick it over to nobody, quick passes. And then obviously he's the best player in the league at winning free kicks and kind of holding on to the ball. But again, he was just slightly overdoing it, I thought. I don't know what you thought watching Bruno. Did you notice something similar?
I felt what he done right, he done unbelievably. But anything that was a bit 50-50 didn't go right for him. It was either all in or not in for him yesterday. And like, don't get me wrong, 70% of his game was outstanding. It's just he seemed to be taking an extra touch when he didn't need to. He was holding onto the ball an extra second. He was trying to Hollywood passes. I mean, don't get me wrong, he has the ability to do it. So if he wasn't trying it, I think we'd be here giving out about him. So, as much as I don't want to be giving players the benefit, I think in this situation, if one of them balls over the top had a Potter out, Murphy gets in and sets Isak up, and we go 2 goals ahead, I think we comfortably go ahead and win that game. So you're going. Sometimes you just need one of your players to have that little bit of creative nous to try it. But yeah, I do see where it can get a little bit frustrating with not constantly making mistakes, but similar mistakes happening repeatedly in the one game can get very frustrating.
Yeah, and I'm all for it. I'm the same. Like, there's no reward without risk and all that. I just think there has to come a point where you kind of go, okay, I'm just going to tone it down for a bit.
Yeah.
Do things a little bit simply. Let's just keep things back to basics, sort of thing. Because as I said, there was just a couple of times, and obviously we saw it happen in the Liverpool game, right? Didn't he try a kind of a pivot, a pirouette, kind of a, the 360 turn? Yeah, and then that kind of led to that goal for Chiesa ultimately. So I think it's just something to watch out for. And again, that probably leads us into his partner, who, for me, I don't want to say is the opposite, right? But we have to talk about Sandro Tonali. Sandro Tonali makes simple things look class. He's not kind of going for the Hollywood things, because just the way he oozes class is enough to make, like, his style, his grace on the ball, his movement. I mean, it's hard not to get overshadowed by the goal, which we'll come to, but just I thought even particularly in the second half, what he offers us, which is a player who's breaking down the ball as a 6. He actually receives a lot of the ball in between the centre backs, like when we're building up from the back. And then suddenly he's down the right wing, down by the corner flag. And that's not taking shots or crosses or whatever you want to call it, just giving an option. And I was having a look at his heat map on SofaScore. Other stats websites are available. And you can just see where, yes, he's a lot of the time spending where he should be in the 6, but there's a lot of concentrated, like, chunks of time where he's in other areas of the field, particularly down that right, which is really interesting. And just, the man is just the engine to burn, but it's just such a good player. It's ridiculous.
He's like the anti-Joe Linton. Joe Linton's the bruiser and stays on the left, whereas Tonali gets the ball. He everything has to be to his feet. He wants to dictate the play. Everything has to go through him, and he can do it. But then he breezes out onto the right, and obviously got his goal from the right-hand side. But everything he does, and the absolute speed of the man. Like I when we signed him, I never went Sandro Tonali, lightning quick centre midfielder. The man is absolutely rapid. I do not underestimate the speed of the man. It's unbelievable. But just everything he does is passing he's 2 yards ahead of everyone on the pitch, including Bruno. He is a better midfielder than Bruno. And I said it at the start of the season, and I'm saying it again. He is more pivotal to us than Bruno is. I just cannot get my head around how we managed to take this lad 50 million out of Milan. Don't get me wrong. First season for us wasn't exactly what you want, but he is going to be so important for us over the next 10 years, because that's how long he's going to be with us for, because he's unbelievable.
Yeah, and he's really settled in, I think, obviously into the squad as a midfielder. You can see him barking instructions. You can see how he works and interlinks with other players. But even just settling into the club, obviously did an interview with Keith Downey on the beach, which is great. His English has come on loads. But I think the connection with the fans is growing, where initially it was this idea of he owes us a debt of gratitude and we stood by him. But it's more than that now. It's an appreciation. It's, I want to do this for you, but also I want to enjoy the adoration. He likes the tunes. I saw his face on the stage when Bruno is out of tune chanting the Sandro Tonali song that's been in my head for 24 hours. It's all of that. And yeah, it's just what a player we have there. And like yourself, like you're saying, I just don't want to see him go. The big question though, Alan, the big question, and he's kind of answered it himself. But if we go to before he answered it himself, did you think he meant it? This, for anyone who hasn't seen it, folks, just press pause on this podcast now.
Yes.
If you somehow haven't seen it, go on to Sky Sports app or YouTube or Twitter, wherever you want to go. Look up this goal. I've seen more headlines of what have we just witnessed. Sandro Tonali defies physics, ridiculous angles. He's basically, I mean, he's closer to the corner flag than he is to the box on the line, on the throw-in line, and he's just whacked it, and it's ended up somehow in the top corner of the net. My reaction was ridiculous. I just couldn't believe it went in.
I'm actually going to tell you what I said to my mates last night, and I said Sandro Tonali's just after scoring from 6 yards out, but it's actually 30 yards out. And one of the lads like, "What the hell do you mean?" I was like, "He was in line with the 6-yard box, but 30 yards out, and he just put the ball in the top corner." And they were like, "You're not making any sense." And then they watched the goal and were like, "That makes perfect sense once you see the goal." I'm going, he had no right to score a goal from there. Now, Flecken should have done a little bit better. That's neither here nor there.
Well, he's totally caught him off the hop.
Yeah, 100%. I don't understand why he came out and said himself that he didn't mean it. There was no one in the box to be crossing it. Isak was only bursting into the box at that exact moment. He went near post with that. I think he was going for it in my head. I think it was more of it. I'm hitting this towards the goal. Hopefully it gets spilled or there's a deflection. I don't think he was going, there's somebody in the box, I'll whip across into them. He was just hammering this across the goal. And it went into the top corner, but it went straight into the roof of the net. And it was one of the most mad goals I've ever seen. It was on par with the Cisse Chelsea volley for going, why did you, it's gone into the back of the net. Fair enough, I won't say that.
Wait, no, don't, okay.
Yeah. All right, fair enough. That's why you're a professional footballer and I'm watching on the telly. Fair enough, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was trying to figure out, I was watching the replay. I was trying to judge, I think if he watched the replay back, had time to before his interviews and speaking, then he might be in a better position to say, yeah, I meant it. But I think if he hasn't seen it back and then he's like, well, I wasn't going for it, I don't want to look like a dick and say it was in case the replay really looks like, I was across it. And I almost feel like he was going to cross and just change his mind at the last minute. And that's where he's going with his 70-30 thing. And it kind of became neither, but both. But either way, the ball was struck so well. And it's just aesthetically to watch a goal like that and to have seen it live. I was off the couch. I was like, I don't think my eyes have ever been wider. Like, I just couldn't. I literally was like, I've never seen a goal like this. And I just don't think I have. Beardsley had one, apparently. Well, I did watch the replay back. The Beardsley one back in the mid-90s, I think, maybe 93, 4, 2. I can't remember the year. There is a Beardsley one that's quite similar. I think he's a little bit further from the byline, but the angle is something similar. It was what a goal, but what a goal to win a game. And yeah, obviously all the talk now is about Sandro Tonali, and rightly so.
Yeah.
We're going to use that for another conversation to dive into our spotlight. But just, I'm sitting there and I'm like, Alexander Isak, Sandro Tonali. I love these players. I'm so happy these lads play for Newcastle. And I've had a Tonali thing from Football Manager for far too long, which has always been there. But if we have these two lads fit and firing going into next season, Champions League or no Champions League, but preferably Champions League, get some additions, get some support, get some service, get some quality. I mean, I said this on a podcast about 5 days ago before the Brentford game. I don't even think we've seen the best of either of these lads or a lot of these lads. There's just so much more there. Before we talk about a bit more about Tonali and midfielders, Alan, because that's something we're going to chat about. One last question I've been wondering, and I haven't asked anybody yet because I didn't have anyone to ask, and then I said I'd save it for the pod. Have we seen a fully fit Alexander Isak in a Newcastle jersey? Now, when I say fully fit, no little niggles, question marks, 5 to 10 games of fully fit player in a row. And I'm starting to wonder, have we?
Now that you've asked me and I'm thinking, I don't think so, is the honest to God's answer. Because
there's always a little...
a tight hamstring, a tight groin. Don't get me wrong, when you're as good as he is, you only need to be playing at 65%. You're still the best player on the pitch. But yeah, now that you've pointed that out to me, I don't think we have seen him. We've seen him for a game or two, 100%, but I don't think we've seen a full run of 5, 6, 7 games where he has been 100% fit, which is not concerning by any stretch of the imagination, but it's
It's interesting.
the other side of the coin is that we're kind of flogging the dead horse over and over again. Like when Wilson was injured and Eddie just did not trust Asula for some reason, although I do think he's going to have a Lewis Hall season next season where he's going to be outstanding. I just don't. I think he was overplayed in certain parts, and that has led to him being not entirely fit towards the latter end of the season. But if this is how good he is when we're not seeing him fully fit, imagine what he'd be like when he is fully fit. That's worrying.
This is exactly where my thinking is.
Yeah.
Like, it's nothing against. I mean, look, I'll happily take this version of Alexander Isak as long as he's available to start games and score goals. It's fine. But just I just found myself thinking, if there was such thing as a 100% fit over the course of 2 months, 3 months, Alexander Isak, because I just don't feel like we've seen it. He's available, great, and he hasn't been properly injured. But I'd imagine there's a lot of bubble wrap, there's a lot of checking on various things, and maybe it's the way his body's built. You know, he's not just the style of play he does. He does a lot of running, there's a lot of movement. But yeah, it was just something I found myself wondering. And it's the opposite of Wilson, which is, have we ever seen him actually any bit fit?
No.
But I'm just talking about like 100% fit. And yeah, maybe he doesn't need to be. But yeah, it's an interesting thought. So we won the game anyway. And the good news is we're now up. At the time of recording, he says, as he goes to race and check the Chelsea-Tottenham score, which is kicked off while we're recording, folks. I can say that 32 minutes into the Chelsea game, it is 0-0 with Spurs. So, or we're not supposed to call them Spurs, are we? Tottenham Hotspur, whatever they want to be called. We are 5th in the league. And as of that result last night, prior to Chelsea playing their game, we were 5th on our own, a point ahead of them. Only 1 point behind Man City with a game in hand. Nottingham Forest obviously have extended their lead on us because Man United are so shit at football. Forest didn't even play that well, and Man United still managed to make balls of it. But as it stands, we're 5th in the league. If we stop the count now, Champions League place, 5th place. Alan
Chelsea are ahead of us on goal difference if it ends now.
If it ends in a draw, I see what you mean. Okay.
Yes. So we don't want
so we're all Tottenham at the moment, folks. So keep an eye on that result. But either way, that would give them an extra game as well. So our game in hand is crucial here. And that game is going to be just less than a week from now, right? It's the Crystal Palace midweek game.
Week, yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember what date it is. It's on the calendar behind me, but I can't remember where it is. 16th. Apologies. It's the 16th, I think.
That is a massive, massive game for us. I think if we have such an opportunity. I don't like saying things like this, but we're playing Leicester on Monday. We then welcome Man Red to St. James's Park, and we then play Palace. We have a massive opportunity to take, including Brentford, 12 points from those 4 games. We take 12 points from those 4 games. We firmly nail ourselves to go. We are the main dogs in trying to get this 5th place for Champions League. Don't get me wrong. Man City are going to be in and around it. Chelsea are going to be in and around it. We can pull 12 points out of this. With Haaland not potentially being out for the remainder of the season, what's to say that we're not going to sneak into 4th and they fall out of it? It's a potential.
I mean, it's shaping up to be like the title race is over, but everything else is fairly wide open. Like you can leave Arsenal where they are, but fair play to Forest. I mean, you can't take it away from them. They've been brilliant this season. But yeah, it's Man City, Newcastle, Chelsea, and maybe Villa. You would think all kind of pushing for that spot, but a lot of it's in our control, and many years in the past it hasn't been. So where previously you'd always be relying on someone to make a balls of it, things are in our control. And as he's correctly said, and I made a balls of the date, we have that game in hand against Palace in about 2 weeks' time. We have obviously Leicester at the start of next week. So that's going to be a big, big game. We don't always do brilliantly against Palace, but we are at home. And, we have a Mickey Mouse team before that in the form of Man United. So That might
Yeah.
give us something to cheer about. Okay.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed. Oh, we'll have so much to talk about next week. Right. Before we finish out the show, and we're not going to do a quiz because instead, I thought we'd do something a little bit different, Alan, to wrap up the show for a little spotlight. All this talk about Sandro Tonali, and it's mainly because the song has been in my head all day, had me thinking about where's his ceiling? Could Sandro Tonali be one of our greatest midfielders? If, like you kind of propose, if he does stay around long enough, if he does kind of stay long enough to repay what we all say is all this loyalty we've shown him. But let's say, if we have him for 3, 4, 5 seasons, even, does he have the ceiling? Does he have the potential, the ability to become one of our best ever midfielders? And we're mainly going to stick with our usual, which is the Premier League era. So we started pondering some names, myself and Alan, about 3 minutes before we hit record. So the homework has been very analytical, as always, here, folks. So we thought we'd kind of together quickly kind of put together our top 5 Newcastle United centre midfielders from the past 30 odd years since the Premier League began in 92-93. And we had a list. We ended up with a list of about 12 names thereabouts. So I think the easiest way to do this, Alan, is we need to put forward some cases. So basically, I want you to just pick me your first name that you insist should be in this list, and I'll see if I agree with you.
That I insist should be on this list is Gary Speed.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like this a lot.
Yeah. You can't argue with that, man. He was outstanding for us. Simply put.
I think there'll be younger listeners here that might not remember Gary Speed playing for us. And he's an interesting player in terms of profile because he was very good at Leeds. He was very good at Everton. And he was very good at Newcastle. Quite often when you look at a player, especially kind of going back a little bit, you usually associate them with one club. And obviously we will, he spent probably the longest maybe with Newcastle, I suppose.
Yeah, he did.
He's one of those players that he's close enough to like most Premier League appearances and so on. But I look at Gary Speed and I just see one of the most all-round midfielders you've ever seen. Like he was a 6 and an 8 and at times a 10. He was a left winger at one point in his career. He was a left back at various times. Scored goals, loved a good header, great in the tackle. And was captain at different times whenever Shearer wasn't available. I can't fault it. I'd be amazed if we don't end up with Gary Speed in here, and interested to hear what listeners think as well. So you can be, while we're talking, folks, be putting together your own top 5 and think about whether you would, which names you'd put forward if it was your turn. But yeah, I'm okay with Gary Speed as it stands. Okay, I will see your Gary Speed. And I will raise you. I have so many choices here. I'm going to raise you a Rob Lee. So we're still back in the 90s here.
Yeah.
Rob Lee is somebody I wish I was older watching. So I watched a lot of Rob Lee. Rob Lee is actually over my shoulder here. You can't see him because the Irish Mags logo is in the way, but he's here as one of my Corinthians figures. So Rob Lee is a player I would have seen many, many times, but at the age of anything from kind of 9, 10 up to 12 and beyond. I wish I was older where I had a better understanding and appreciation of football to watch Rob Lee now, like if he was playing now. Because similar story, like he was a very difficult midfielder to play against.
Yes.
Because there was so much movement. He was very smart in the ball, didn't make mistakes. And has a very high number of assists. I don't have the number in front of me because, as I said, 3 minutes of research. Very high number of assists in that really good Newcastle team. And again, when you look at the entertainers, he's not the first name that comes to mind because he wasn't super flashy. There wasn't a whole lot of flair. He wasn't crazy quick, but just an incredibly good, talented midfielder that probably should have had more caps for England.
Well, I was looking when we did do this. He got 21 caps for England when the England midfield was kind of dominated by Gerrard, Scholes, like those era of players. Like you're going, that's a fairly decent midfield to be breaking into. Let's be honest about it. Like it's not beyond the realms of possible.
I think he's another one of those players as well that, again, the research isn't here, so I can't back this up with hard facts. I feel like he's one of those players that was capped for England by quite a few England managers over a period, if that makes sense. Was never a consistent like guarantee in any of the squads, but a lot of England managers liked him. And again, he just brought so much to it. So yeah, it was him. Was it him and Warren Barton that left at the same time?
Oh, two.
Or am I dreaming that? Yeah, when they went to Derby or something.
Derby together, yeah. That you're right. Actually, the two of them were signed by Derby the same day, I think.
Yeah, was this a Souness thing?
I think it might have been. Oh no, 02. That would have been Bobby. No,
I can't remember rightly exactly when it happened. Maybe it was Robson, maybe it was I can't even remember the timelines. There you go. That's how thorough the research has been.
Info, yeah.
The point I'm making is I was actually shocked and disappointed when he left because he had so much more to offer at the time. So yeah, big Rob Lee advocate over here. Be interested to see if he stays in the top 5 as we cruise along, Alan.
Yeah.
Right, your penalty.
Do I go old school or do I go new school? I'm just going to take the new school and someone who I think will definitely be in it, and I'm going to go with Bruno G, our current captain. Fantastic.
I mean, he did make our all-time 11. So you kind of think it would be kind of weird not to put him in there. So I think you're right. I think as we look at it, Bruno's been here for how long? Are we talking
3 seasons? Yeah.
Because it was a January signing. So I think it's fair. Bruno's 98% of the time been available, 95% of the time been brilliant, scored some massive goals for us, obviously as captain now. I can't argue with Bruno being in there. When you look at the list that we have in front of us, and you'll hear the names as we go on, looking at talent, yeah, I can't fault it. Okay. So I'm fully on board with Bruno. I think we're fully on board with Speed. Lee, I'm not sure if you were convinced on Rob Lee, so let's see who might get in ahead of him. Okay. I loved Yohan Cabaye. Man, I loved Yohan Cabaye.
Yes.
Yohan Cabaye cost 4 million from Lille.
Yeah. And ran the show for 2.5 seasons for us. Like, outstanding. Was the last, previous to very recent, was the last man to score a winner at Old Trafford for us. Like, his catalogue of goals alone will be worthy of a place in this, I think. He was unreal for us.
Okay. Looks like Cabaye is in here. All right. Anyone else? Who else have we got on?
I'm going to have to go with Czech Tiote for just pure, absolute butchery in the midfield. The man scored 1 goal for us, and it was one of the best goals we've ever seen scored. The man would kick his own granny to win the ball back. Imagine him in our midfield now.
Yeah. He would unlock so much as well. Do you know what I mean? He would just, and another bargain signing, another player that nobody else was looking at. And I mean, a lot of people might just associate him with that Arsenal equaliser. But it was glorious. It was one of the best Newcastle goals in history in terms of what it meant. But like, we talked about number 6s before. Like David Batty is another name on the list here. I don't know if he'll make it in. Chris will be devastated. It's hard to say, have we had a better 6 than Chick Tiote?
I don't think so.
Do you know? I mean, you could maybe go with Scary Speed, but
he also scored one of the best disallowed goals that we have ever scored against Man City. He absolutely cannoned one into the top corner, and it was disallowed. It should never have been disallowed, but it was. And it was an unreal goal. So that's another reason why he should be in this.
Okay, so Speed, Bruno, Cabaye, Tiote. We've got 1 spot. And obviously we've nominated Rob Lee, so he's potentially there. I'm going to reel off the names we have left on the list. And we need to pick 1 each. So those names are, as I said, David Batty. Rob Lee's already been mentioned. John Joe Shelby. I had to put him in there just for the laugh.
Yeah.
Kevin Nolan. Interesting. A lot of goals scored.
A lot of goals.
Player when it mattered.
Is he a midfielder?
Joe Linton. That's another question as well. Joe Linton is on this list. We've already mentioned Tonali, but it's too soon, so I'm not going to allow him in there. Jorginho Wijnaldum. It's another one, but short span. Yeah. And the last one on the list for me is the most interesting, because you just asked me, is Nolan a midfielder? Is Peter Beardsley a midfielder?
No. I always assumed Peter Beardsley was. You play Peter Beardsley with a tall striker so that he can be the little buzz around striker, or winger. Just you go out and tell Peter Beardsley to play football. You don't tell him what to do. You just say, yes, you're playing today. Do what you need to do. You can't pencil him into a position. So you wouldn't put this lad centre midfield, would you?
Yeah, you probably wouldn't. I mean, at one point in his career, he probably ended up there quite a bit. He started to drop a little bit deeper, but I think where he was best, he was drifting out wide, in the 10, up as a striker as well. When he was there with Andy Cole, and they scored a stupid amount of goals combined. So makes our life easier if he's not there. So let's go with that. Sorry, Peter Beardsley. Unbelievable player, though. So who's your name then for the 5th place on this list before we wrap up?
I would have to. It's a toss-up between Rob Lee and Kevin Nolan. Kevin Nolan could play centre midfield, but was Rob Lee a better centre midfielder than him? I do think he was.
That's the question.
I personally
Is Rob Lee your final answer?
Yes, Rob Lee is my final answer.
The good news is I'm in full agreement here. I did obviously nominate him for that reason. I'd be disappointed if he wasn't in there. So I'm happy with Rob Lee to take the 5th place, which gives us our all-time Newcastle United top 5 midfielders from the Premier League era, the last 30-odd years. Gary Speed, Bruno Guimaraes, Yohan Cabaye, Cheick Tiote, and Rob Lee. I tell you, that wouldn't be 5 bad midfielders to choose from in any squad. So we'll take it.
Not bad.
And hopefully in a couple of years, we'll be adding Sandro Tonali to that list. We might even be adding Lewis Miley to that list. We may even be adding Rory Finneran to that list, but that might be further down the line. Who knows? Always ambitious. Right. Just before we go, Alan, next meetup, we're playing Leicester on Monday. Discuss.
Next meetup, definitely guaranteed meetup, is in Bleecker Street Bar on Dorset Street in Dublin. Potentially another meetup kind of in and around the country, or even up in Belfast. Nothing has been confirmed yet, but we 100% have one in Bleecker Street Bar, Dorset Street. If you or anyone you know wants to organise a meetup, we are more than happy to plug the life out of it and get as many people to it as we possibly can. But yeah, if you're anywhere in and around Dublin, come over and say hello, because wasn't a great turnout last night because there were so many over at the match, which is mental to say for a Wednesday night game. But 10 minutes before kickoff, I got a text off a woman I know in Newcastle who's like, I have a couple of Geordie mates over in Dublin. Would you mind if they came into the match? And I was like, absolutely not. That's exactly what we want. So yeah, anyone in and around Dublin, come on in, say hello, and scream and shout abuse at Newcastle players and Leicester players all together instead of doing it in the comfort of your own home.
Excellent. Well, yes, as usual, check out theirishmags.com to see all the details and, of course, photos and information about meetups, updates, all the latest events, all the latest news in the Irish Mags community, and all of our socials, which are below all over the place in all the descriptions in all of the places. We will be back for more Irish Magnus next week. Hopefully another win against what is generally a very poor Leicester side, but you don't want to say that out loud too much. So until then, how are the lads? Slán go fóill. And we'll see you all very soon. Thank you for listening, and thank you, Alan.
Slán Amhaile.